Kristen Dugdale from Essex was victim to a vile monster, branded Britain's worst cyberstalker, and claimed the nightmare nearly ruined her life. Netflix's Can I Tell You a Secret? Stalker Matthew Hardy first reached out to his 31-year-old target in 2019. He approached the mom of one via an anonymous Instagram account and told her he had important information about her husband at the time. Over a 2-year period, Hardy would go on to accuse Kristen of having sex with her husband's dad and sold explicit content of her online. He created accounts posing as Kristen with her modeling photographs and contacted people who she used to work for and go to school with. Hardy would also degrade the 31-year-old over the phone, verbally abusing her multiple times a day from different numbers. On other occasions, he would stay silent, and Kristen would only hear breathing on the other end of the line. Kristen started to isolate herself from people in her life as she became paranoid her stalker was someone she knew. This would damage her marriage, which eventually ended in divorce. Despite reporting the harassment to police, Hardy didn't stop until he was arrested in 2020 and charged the following year for crimes unrelated to Kristen. Hardy pleaded guilty to stalking involving fear of violence and harassment after breaking a restraining order against 9 victims. He was jailed for 9 years at Cheshire Crown Court. However, it is believed Hardy's real total of victims reached up to 63 over an 11-year period. Mum of one Kristen told Cheshire Live Hardy had initially pretended to be a woman from Manchester when he first contacted her. He implied she had slept with her ex-husband's best friend. She said, "I was scared for my life at one point. I lost my confidence and my trust in people around me. I ended up getting into a lot of arguments with my ex over it. It affected our relationship and was a contributing factor to the breakdown of our marriage. I was so affected, I had to quit my job as a model." Kristen said the ordeal made her start questioning everyone. The former model said Hardy knew the names of her friends and family, which made her think it was someone in her life. But the stalker eventually started contacting people from his own Facebook account. He messaged her and her ex-partner's dad directly to claim they were sleeping with each other. Kristen last spoke to Hardy on October 26, 2020, to tell him she had contacted the police. She said, "I found it strange in the end how he didn't even conceal his identity. It was like he wanted to get caught but thought he was invincible and nothing would happen. The last thing I said to him is I wouldn't stop until he was in jail. I was very shocked by how high his sentence was. People do worse things and get less time, so I was happy with the sentence." But Kristen still felt there were many hoops to jump through to get help. She claimed the police didn't believe me and had to do their job for them. "People need to be aware, and police need to take this kind of thing a bit more seriously," added Kristen. The mum of one warned anyone who experiences cyberstalking to report it as soon as possible and gather evidence. Police Constable Kevin Anderson from Northwich Local Policing Unit said, "Having led on this case for more than 18 months, I have seen the emotional distress and turmoil that Hardy has inflicted on his victims. He did all of this while hiding behind his computer screen. The impact on those affected by his actions has been immense, causing some of them to change some of their daily habits and live in constant fear that they were being watched. On other occasions, it caused them to lose trust in their friends and family members and even led to the breakdown of long-term relationships." Thankfully, Hardy has now been held accountable for his actions, and his online activity has finally been brought to a stop. I hope that the conclusion of this case will provide some closure for his victims and enable them to rebuild and move forward with their lives. Elisa Lam was last seen on January 31, 2013, in the lobby of the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She was vacationing through the West Coast, documenting the trip on her blog, and checking in with her parents every day. On January 31st, those calls stopped. Lamb had vanished. Soon the police were involved and her parents arrived to help with the search. They had nothing. That February, LAPD released elevator surveillance footage of Lamb before her disappearance. The footage shows Lamb behaving strangely in the elevator, appearing to talk with invisible people, peering around the corner of the door, crouching in the corner, and opening and closing the door. But what exactly is going on in this video raises more questions than answers. Theories range from psychotic episodes, to demonic possession, to unknown assailants just out of the around that time. Hotel guests started reported weird things happening with the Cecil Hotel water supply. The shower was awful, said Sabina Baugh, who spent 8 days there during the investigation. When you turned the tap on, the water was coming black first for 2 seconds, and then it was going back to normal. The tap water tasted horrible, Baugh said. It had a very funny, sweety, disgusting taste. It's a very strange taste. I can barely describe it. But for a week, they never complained. We never thought anything of it, she said. We thought it was just the way it was here. On the morning of February 19th, a hotel employee climbed to the roof and used a ladder to investigate the hotel's water storage tanks. That's where authorities found the decomposing naked body of Lamb, whose personal items were found nearby. After an autopsy, her death was labeled accidental, about the strange circumstances in the hotel's past. The tank has a metal latch that can be opened, but authorities said access to the roof is secured with an alarm and lock. The single-room occupancy hotel has an unusual history. Night Stalker Richard Ramirez, who was found guilty of 14 slayings in the 1980s, lived on the 14th floor for several months in 1985. And international serial killer Jack Unterweger is suspected of murdering 3 prostitutes during the time he lived there in 1991. He killed himself in jail in 1994. In 1962, a female occupant jumped out of one of the hotel's windows, killing herself and a pedestrian on whom she landed. A few years ago, my anxiety was high. I was already at a point in my life where I thought I was a little out of it, but that was amplified by a lot when I kept repeatedly hearing noises outside my window. Like every single night, it just wouldn't stop. I would finally get so freaked out I'd go wake my parents up and get them to look outside, but they never found anything. I started to think I was crazy or just subconsciously seeking attention. One morning, my grandfather discovered one of our lawn chairs beneath our bathroom window. It's pretty high up, and the bottom pane is fogged, so I'm not sure the chair even helped, but it was left there regardless. The next night, heard sounds again. Nothing. The night after, however, we checked outside and discovered something that made my stomach churn. A small stepladder was sitting directly outside of my window, back just enough to allow someone to sit on it, but still see. On my windowsill was a bag of now cold McDonald's, which is just up the street from me. Most of the food was still in there, but still, some fucker had been watching me doing absolutely nothing of interest in my room without me knowing for I don't know how fucking long. The cops were called, nothing happened. I felt crazier than ever. No one was to be found, but at least we had some evidence that someone that shouldn't be hovering around our house was at my window, watching intently through the blinds, in a space between the 2 curtains. Heard noises the next night, ran outside, nothing. Earlier in the night, I'd sewn my curtains together, which hopefully made it harder to see in. Apparently it did, because now the fucker had taken to climbing on top of our air conditioning unit, and from there, climbing onto our Herbie Sting garbage can, then standing on that so that he could see above where the drapes went. The handprints and shoe prints were left on the lid to prove it. I should also mention that there were now holes in my screen, and I heard these holes be created. He took a stick and sharpened it. Somehow we found it outside my window and was trying to stealthily break away the screen bit by bit. The hole is still there. The next night, I distinctly heard the gravel near my window crunch. There was simply no mistaking my sound. As stealthily as I could, I let out a small moan he surely heard and rolled just out of view as if I were sleeping, then pressed myself against a wall out of view of the window, very quietly opened my door, and crept down the hall. My heart was pounding. Normally, I knock on my parents' door, but I knew the slightest sound would make the bastard bolt, so I quietly opened their door and sneaked in, then informed them that there was, without a single doubt, someone outside my window. They didn't mind the intrusion and got up, got dressed, formulated a plan, and crept to the back door. I ran to the bathroom to stand on the edge of our tub and peek out the window just as the back door was thrown open and my parents ran outside like morons. And sure enough, they saw him. They started screaming as the man leapt off of the Irby and bolted down our driveway, which was what I was looking at. They screamed all sorts of horrible things at the tops of their lungs. "You sick motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking kill you!" from my dad. "You fucking freak!" from my mom. He ended up escaping across the street, hiding behind a house adjacent to us. The balls on this bastard. He kept peeking out at us as we all stood outside, but we wanted to leave him there so the cops could finally nab him. They were called, they came, and they searched, but they never found him. Bastard must have hopped a fence or some shit. Still, to this day, I hear sounds outside my window, even in the dead of winter, but he's never out there. He might have just been a peeper, but he targeted me specifically, and for months until he was almost caught. What really pisses me off is that once he lost interest in me because it was too unsafe, he moved onto a house down the street with 2 little girls. He actually managed to get in through their window, and their dad caught him just standing in the middle of the room, watching them sleep, jacking it, I think. I still don't think he was caught, even then. All I know is that it could have been way worse, but it messed me up. I trust the men in my neighborhood even less now. The men around here stare very blatantly. I've been chased home by one. I've had a guy try to jerk me into his car when I was passing him, telling him no, I didn't need a ride and to leave me alone. All these years later, I still hear shit outside my window and freak out. It's fucked up. I turn out my lights entirely to exercise. I do my best to avoid the windows when I undress. It just scarred me, even though it wasn't a huge deal. Peeper fucked up my sense of safety, targeted me for months, was almost caught, then left me alone, we think. Then moved on to a house with 2 little girls and jacked it in their room. It's been well over 2 years. I don't want to work as a waitress even though I desperately need the money because I know he would find me and sit there all day night watching me. I don't want to work anywhere near the place I met him, which is basically anywhere near city center. I don't go to the mall alone anymore. I don't go to certain supermarkets and cafes because I know he frequents them. I don't even know this guy's last name, and he controls where I go to and where I am, cautious, even where we move to. I wish I could leave the city, but I can't, and even if I did, he knows both my first and last name, and I only know his first name and what he looks like. He can find me easily, and it's going to be even easier once I finish university since I aim for a university teaching position, and they display your info on the internet. They have to, for the students. He could come to my open classes or lectures. He could follow me again. I'm scared. Mine was actually an ex-boyfriend. The stalking started after the breakup, but the entire relationship was fucked. We had been friends for a few years when we started dating my junior year of high school. After we started dating, he completely became a different person, or maybe let the true him shine through. He'd always grab my phone and look through my text messages and call logs. He wanted to be together all the time, no matter what. Even if I was studying, he had already graduated high school and worked full-time. I'd have random crazy girls calling me, telling me they were going to beat me up or they were going to fuck my man. He'd be insanely jealous, and when we'd fight, he'd get so mad he'd throw his phone across the room or across the street. Good old Nokia's, always unbreakable. The whole relationship was crazy, and I tried to end it at least 6 to 7 times over the 1.5-year span of it all. Every time we'd break up, he'd go batshit crazy and do the "I'm gonna kill myself" bit. He'd call and call and call and want to talk and talk and talk, until eventually I would say, "If I agreed to get back together with you, will you back off?" Not healthy, I know, but I had shit to do, sports, school, and a job, and didn't have time to deal with it. It was easier just to agree to get back together. One time I broke up with him, he told me he had been having headaches, so he went to the doctor that day and found out that he had a brain aneurysm and only had 8 months to live. We had 2 friends die in car accidents on the same day, exactly 1 year apart, about 4 months before this and a year and 4 months before this. So when I realized that 8 months from then would be the same month as our friends' deaths, I was completely freaked out, and we got back together because I honestly believed we had some curse against our friends and that exact date. Wouldn't you know it that those 8 months came and went without a single trip back to the doctor for his brain aneurysm? So here's where it gets crazy. My senior year, I had no idea how to get out of this relationship, so I started looking into out-of-state colleges, figuring there was no way he'd follow me. If I could just put up with the crazy until that summer, I'd be off in a magical world of college and no crazy BF. He must have seen the brochure from the college I was interested in, because suddenly he wanted to go to that college. He even went as far as taking the SATs. I knew my plan wasn't going to work. He'd follow me wherever I went. So what did I do? I joined the fucking army. That'll show him. Try following me in there, right? Next thing I know, he's meeting with a fucking recruiter. Of course, the likelihood of him being stationed where I was is very slim, but I didn't know that at the time. I was young and scared. I realized the army was a dumb idea and wrote a letter to the commissioner, whoever is the head honcho of recruitments. I explained that I had lied on my physical, as the recruiters tell you to do, and sent a copy of all of my medical records. I was let out shortly after that. I don't remember how it finally happened, but we broke up. I changed my phone number and cut off connection with all of our shared friends. Yay! The end of crazy. Free at last. Or so I thought. For the next few months after the breakup, until I left for college, he'd randomly show up where I was. The movie theater, the tennis courts, restaurants that we never went to before. He'd want to talk, but I'd always just say I had to leave immediately. He'd get furious if he saw me with another guy, no matter who the guy was. It could have been my cousin, and he would have flipped his shit. I still have no idea how he knew where I was going. Once I left for college, 90 minutes away, I thought it'd be over. I heard he had come up to my college a few times to see other friends, but I'd stay in my dorm those nights, afraid that I'd see him if I went out. During my freshman year of college, one of our close friends from that same group killed himself. I came home to attend the funeral. My ex was pretty distraught since this was the 3rd friend of ours to die in 3 years. I had no choice but to be nice to him. I mean, it was a funeral for our good friend. After the funeral, everyone was going over to a friend's house just to spend time together. I didn't want to go, but my friends convinced me. While at the house, the ex starts talking to me. I act polite, but try to avoid him. Doesn't work. He's right next to me all night, trying to kiss me, put his arm around me, whatever he could get. Someone this translates into him thinking we're back together. FML, I tell him I'm leaving. He freaks out. He gets my number somehow from someone at the party. He starts texting and calling and texting and calling all the time. This continued for 5 years. 5 years. I moved out of state now and don't talk to anyone from back then anymore. Finally, the phone calls stopped. I still get weird whenever I go back to my hometown. I'm constantly surveying the area, scared that I'm going to see him again. and if I happen to be with my SO, I won't even venture into any part of the city that I think there's a chance he could be in. Crazy ex-boyfriend continued to call and text and show up places for 5 years after the breakup. I'm still terrified to go back to my hometown. I have had a friend from high school who definitely fits into stalker territory. Basically, it was common knowledge that he had a thing for me. I kept rejecting him, first more subtly, and then just downright, no, never, not going to happen, ever. I figure whatever, we're in high school, he'll get over it. Eventually, I'm in my senior year of college. His sister goes to a university a bit south of mine, whereas he's a bit north. They ask if they can meet up at my place and stay the night, so we can all get together and visit again. I say that sounds fine. Things go pretty well. Eventually, they both leave. My roommates have some of those magnetic letters they keep on the fridge, which I don't pay much attention to, but the morning after he left, my roommate is obviously reading something. She turns to me, asks me if I wrote this. I read it, and it's this ridiculously over-the-top love poem. I'm immediately horrified because I know exactly where this came from. My roommates are laughing their asses off. A few days later, I get an email from the guy. He talks about the poem and how he woke up in the middle of the night and saw me reading it and how hot that was, or whatever. I'm trying to figure out how the fuck he could have seen me reading a poem I never saw until after he'd already left, when I remember that his sister had dyed her hair the same color as mine. So without his glasses, he must have mistaken her for me. More time passes while I try to avoid the guy in the hopes that he'll get the message I've been trying to impart on him for years now. I start looking at jobs abroad for when I graduate. Guy sends me this email about how if I'm gonna move abroad, we really need to get married so that he can justify following me to his parents, and how he's gonna need me to support him when he does follow me because he has no desire to learn the language of the country I'm planning on going to. He figures this is a mutually beneficial arrangement, as eventually I'll be able to profit off of the tax deductions one gets from being married, so even though he knows I'm not interested in him, this is clearly the most logical option for me, so I don't wind up dying sad and alone after paying full taxes for my whole life. It devolves into this ramble about how he hates characters in TV shows, books, who do the whole, I just want the person I love to be happy, whoever that's with, because he thinks it's more logical for them to just kill that other person and narrow the love interest options. I reply to the email, completely pissed off and more creeped out than I ever have been in my life. He seems to get the message, apologizes, and I cut off ties as best as I can. Most of our friends are mutual, and I'm pretty close to his family, a cult. He gets a girlfriend. I figure this is good, maybe he's moving on. She adds me on Facebook and starts talking to me. She goes on about how the sex is amazing and I'm really missing out, and how I should really just sleep with this guy. I tell her I'm in no way interested. She goes on about her other boyfriend back home and how all four of us could get married together on the same day. Completely repulsed, I block her. It's been 3 years since then, and now he's back in my hometown and moved in with the only 3 close friends I have from high school. They seem to think he's finally over it, so I can only hope. Possibly my distaste for My Little Pony has dropped me off the pedestal. I was in a 7-Eleven, and this guy kept smiling at me across the coffee counter. Okay, no big deal. Happens sometimes. He starts talking to me, says he thinks he knows a friend of mine. Now that I think about it, it was a generic name like Matt or Chris. I was young and stupid. I should also mention he had been in an accident years back and was mentally challenged because of it. So I gave him my number and told him to text me sometime. He texted me before I even got home. Not even 10 minutes. Something along the lines of, "You're pretty, I can't stop thinking about you, blah blah, we should hang out." So young and stupid me says, "Sure, I have to go to Borders tomorrow. Want to come along?" After that day, he starts texting me all the time, even if I don't respond. Random things that could also be, "I want to get to know you" things, so I didn't think anything of it. After a week or so of this and realizing he was in no way my type, I started blowing him off, Never met up with him again because I felt something was off with this guy. I told him I met someone and he started being weird as fuck, telling me he's in love with me. He can't stop thinking about me, all this weird obsessive stuff. I tell him to fuck off, stop texting me, you're crazy and can't love me if you don't even know me, and you're freaking me out. A few days later, he texts me that he's sorry and wants to hang out. I tell him I'm out and busy. I was at home with a friend. He says, okay, I'll wait. I'm like, what up? Wait? My friend and I walk through my house to the kitchen, passing the bay window, and I see this guy parked outside my house. I never told him where I lived, never told him my last name, and even so, the house is under my mother's name, which is completely different than mine. I tell my friend, she tells me to text him and say something along the lines of, my friend is at my house. Are you parked in front of it? You're creeping her the fuck out. Leave now. He tells me, okay, he's leaving. He's sorry. We watch from the window. The dude backs up my dead-end street until he's blocked by trees, parks, and just sits there. Text him again, really? She watched you. She can still see you. Leave or I'm calling the cops. He backs to the end of my street and starts telling me, it's a public street. There's nothing you can do. Just talk to me. We stayed in the house and called a bunch of guy friends. I texted Creepo and told him if he won't leave, our friends will make him leave. He finally goes, but keeps texting me every day. Finally, my current fiance, at the time we had just started dating, tells him if he doesn't stop, he'll beat the crap out of him. I block his number. He stops. A few months later, he starts texting me from a new number. He ended up changing his number 4 times throughout all this to get around me blocking him. I still love you, and stuff out of nowhere. Don't respond, he stops. A few months later, I'm pregnant and my fiance and I had been engaged for 6 months. He pops up out of nowhere. I go ballistic. I call the cops. I let them know everything. I file a report. I inform Creep of this and tell him if he ever contacts me again, I will take it as a threat against me, my son, Chuck family, and he will regret it. My fiance takes him number, threatens him as well. It's been almost 2 years with no contact, thank God. Guy pretends to be a friend of a friend, ends up showing up at my house after I told him to leave me alone, continued to stalk me periodically until my fiance threatened him.